turned smack rapper. Only smack rapper that you know is smack rapper.
But you know what they said, you got to figure out. It's interesting because I get a lot of people that come, like people that want to start comedy, right?
Right.
And they said, "Do you got any advice for a young comic that's coming up?" I was like, "Don't ask for advice. You're going to learn through the microphone."
Right.
Because usually a lot of times people don't hear the advice you give them. I give you an example. I had this. It was this young comic that was under the same management umbrella as I was, and I threw him a bone. I let him open for me at Caroline's one weekend, and he asked me that question. He said, "Yo, for a young comic, what advice do you give a young comic coming?" I said, "Don't ask for advice. You figure it out through the microphone." A year later, the same comic, I gave him another spot because he was under the same umbrella as I was. Same comic came to me and said the same thing. He said, "What advice do you have a young comic giving a young comic coming up?" I said, "Nigga, you don't listen to advice."
I gotta refute that because we hear these conversations of Kobe.
But do you think it's a
Jordan.
part? Do you think it's a part that they think? I know you said combination, but do you think that they were sunning you? Like, yo, before I can even fuck with you, you put the work in. Maybe they felt like you wasn't ready to have that conversation with them then.
Impossible, because I watched those numbers teeter-totter between my podcast and theirs on Spotify.
So if you're doing the numbers,
I saw the months where I was like, oh, right behind you. There's other months where I was ahead of people that's known worldwide.
If you was already doing it,
uh-huh.
What did you need them for? I mean, what conversation did you need?
It's just navigating the space. There's avenues. There's okay. If you have a business structure and you figured out how to get to these people, it's just information on the route. But I was saying, you would hear these conversations like, you know, Kobe's funeral. Michael Jordan saying, "Kobe used to call me all the time, ask me about this, ask me about that, ask me about this." Those relationships are important. There's probably, you know, I don't think every comedian told you when you was coming up, you got to figure it out on your own. Somebody might have gave you the jewel and been like,
you know why they never say that? I ain't never asked a nigga for that. I'm telling you, to this day, I never had a mentor.
Right.
I never ever, and I ain't being cocky by saying this, I never had a situation like, what should I do? Can you do this? Because the first time I ever touched a mic, I was smoking. I couldn't stand to know. Right, and I was practicing my own thing. I never asked anybody for anything. All I wanted to do was just keep getting on stage. The only thing I was aggressive about when I first started was like I would put pressure on motherfuckers, put me on stage. You would just hear when I moved from DC, I used to do these spots in Brooklyn, and I was broke as shit. I would come do one club called the Vibes on Flatbush, I think. I would come there every Thursday. They'd be like, "You was just here last week." I'm like, "Nigga, I got new jokes, and I want to know $30." Mm-hmm. You know, I never ever ask anybody for any advice. Now, what I would do, I would sit back and I would watch what people do. Mm. You know, I would never be like, "Do you got any words of wisdom?" I was like this, I'm gonna learn this myself.
Who shot your first special?
My first special, Russ Parr. You know Russ Parr, the radio personality? Mm-hmm. It's an interesting story because at the time, I was just coming off Chappelle Show and I had some good heat. And I was like, but people don't really know me as a stand-up, right? And Comedy Central, they was looking for people to put specials. And they was like, "Can Donnell send us a tape?" I said, "I'm gonna send you a tape, but this tape, it ain't gonna be, like, if you could just X out or just don't pay attention to some of the words I use or whatever." It was a very raw tape. I said, but I could tone it down. And I was like, I don't wanna send this tape because they're gonna be like, nah, right? So they said, "No, just send us a tape." I was like, I don't wanna say that. They was like, "No, please send us a tape." I sent them a tape. Guess what they said? Nah. Right? I told you I was gonna say that. I knew y'all was gonna say it. That was the setup, right? But let me tell you something. I got mad, right? Mm-hmm. And at the time, Russ Parr was doing, he was doing like, I don't want to be disrespectful. He was doing B movies. He was branching out into directing and everything. And I knew he had a relationship with Swirl Entertainment, right? Swirl Entertainment's been for around. And out of nowhere, I just said, "Russ, man, I want to do a special, man." I said, "These people told me no. These people told me no." I said, "Are you in bed with anybody? Or do you know if anybody might be interested?" Right? He said, "Let me give you a call. Right? I'll call you back." He got me my first deal. My first special was called Ashley the Classy. I shot it at the Skerber Theater, I think, in Manhattan, part of New York. NYC. No, it wasn't the festival. What's that school? NYC. The college.
NYU.
NYU. It was a theater there, and we did it. We did that shoestring budget. I know somebody else got paid. I didn't. And I didn't give a fuck about not getting paid a lot of money. I could have been arguing like, I need this amount of money, but I needed the showcase. I wanted people to see that I was funny. I know they probably robbed me. But it was bigger for me to get out there than that. That was the first thing I did. And the crazy thing about it was, normally when you do a special, you do like 4 tapings, right? You'll do 2 shows Friday, 2 shows Saturday. That way they can edit or whatever. And I had pressure, like I felt like I was a Broadway theater actor because I only had 1 shot. It wasn't no second show. No, it was one show. Right. And I had to get it right. And then for me, when I did it, it was like I've learned more on how to prepare myself for a special and how to get my voice out there. But for me, it was like a joke dump. I had these jokes that I've been doing for a while. My special, Ask Your Class, it didn't have beginning, middle, and end. It didn't have that part of it, which makes a special great. But it did have a pow, pow, pow. And that was the first special I ever did. Second one was with Dave produced it.
Dave, that's what I was asking.
And this is the thing, I gotta say this. It's so, motherfuckers want me to compete with myself. And when I say that, what I get a lot, and it irks me, but I'm trying not to be sensitive about it. The first thing a lot of people say, this is what they say, if it wasn't for Dave Chappelle, you know what I'm saying? If it wasn't for this, I was like, you know what Dave Chappelle did throw me a bum by putting me in my show, but he didn't just put anybody on the show. Right. You know, and at the end of the day, if you got talent, you just need the platform. You want to be on the same playing field. What Dave did for me was gave me a platform to do what I've been doing for years, and being funny. And at the end of that, I don't owe anybody any of that, anything. And then what people tell me, oh, what has he done since Chappelle? I've done a lot of shit since Chappelle, but I just so happen to be on what people consider the greatest sketch show in the history of TV. Right. I'll go crazy trying to outdo that. I'll go crazy talking about this is gonna be better. I can't recreate history. I was already a part of history. What I can continue to do is stay, as the YNs say, stay relevant, stay funny. And nobody can take that away from me. Before Chappelle Show, I was doing shit. And after Chappelle Show, I was still doing shit.
That's what the YNs say. They say, here's what the OGs
relevant.
say. The OGs say, fuck them niggas. That's what we say.
What, fuck them?
Yeah, listen, man, let me tell you something. I know you, right? So, what have you done since then? You ate.
Yeah.
You ate, you paid your bills, you bought a house.
You know what? This is what people think.
You can't pay attention to shit like that.
Yo, I be mad at y'all.
But
you
really
make me mad. Yo,
why?
Because I know y'all.
No, I didn't say what have I done. I'm just saying.
No, I mean,
to
even consider what another nigga talking about is crazy to me.
But I want to say 2 points, right? Because everybody has said like three points. I don't want to like breeze past that, right? So we dealing with white supremacy, to where their sole focus is controlling everything: media, music, film, everything. And then another reason why we talk about crab, you said the crabs in the barrel, right? We're not taught psychology. We're not taught cognitive behavioral therapy. And what I found out, because I actually teach this and I do motivational speaking, right, is how you think creates how you feel becomes an emotion, that emotion becomes a vibration, that vibration becomes a magnet that attracts things to you, also repels things away from you. So when you think in a thought, right, your body produces a chemical associated with the thoughts that you think. Now, think of it like dope. People do dope, right? If you're trying to kick the dope habit, right, you got to literally chain a motherfucker to a bed, right? Why? Because they go through withdrawal, right? So when you start to think positive, right, and you start to elevate, right, your elevation can create emotions in the people watching you elevate, and if they don't know how to emulate or do it, they go through their own personal withdrawal, and then they want to attack you, right?
But eventually, you got to get those people out your life.
But listen.
Right. Eventually, you can't fuck with them.
Hold on, I got you.
You just can't fuck with them.
I got you.
This Hoffa, trapper turn smack rapper. Only smack rapper that you know is smack rapper.